The wind kicked up dirt across the main road of Dry Creek, spinning it into little devils that danced through the sagging porch posts of the Hollow Spur Saloon. Inside, the air was stale with smoke, spilled beer, and the kind of men who had too much time and too little to show for it. Cole Whitaker sat in his usual corner, hat low, fingers wrapped around a half-empty glass of whiskey he wasn't sure he even tasted anymore. He wore grief like other men wore guns, tight, worn, always close. The ring around his neck clinked lightly against his chest as he leaned back. His dead wife's wedding band, 7 years of marriage, gone in one blink of a spooked horse and a broken neck. That was 6 years ago. Or maybe 6 lifetimes. He didn't count anymore. Then the saloon doors creaked open, and she walked in. Boots caked in dust, dress clinging to full hips that swayed with every step, not from show but weight. Her cheeks were flushed from heat or shame, maybe both. She carried a worn leather satchel and a face that didn't flinch when a few of the local cowboys whistled low. "Lord," someone muttered, "that's a whole damn chuck wagon walking on 2 legs." Another one snorted, "Bet she leaves footprints you can swim in." The laughter was sharp, mean. Cole's jaw twitched. He didn't know why. Maybe because she didn't look away. Maybe because she didn't shrink. She stood at the bar, asked the barkeep for water and work in the same breath. "We got no rooms and no work," he said without looking up. "Try over in Rustwood." "I just came from Rustwood," she said. "They told me to try here." The bartender shrugged, already pouring someone else's beer. She stood there a moment longer, fingers tightening on the edge of the counter. She didn't beg, didn't cry, just nodded once, picked up her satchel, and turned to leave. That's when Cole stood. He didn't plan it, didn't think it through, just spoke. "She can stay in the bunkhouse." Every head in the saloon turned, even the player piano seemed to quiet down. The woman turned, eyes narrowing slightly. "I didn't ask for charity." Cole met her stare. Her eyes were a deep brown, fierce and wet like river mud after a storm. "Wasn't offering charity," he said. "Just space. Ain't nobody using it but spiders." "Oh," someone coughed. Someone else whispered. Cole didn't care. She studied him for a long second, as if measuring whether or not he was full of shit. Then she nodded once. "Name's Ellie Mae Harlan," she said, walking toward him. "Appreciate the roof." He nodded back. "Cole Whitaker." They didn't shake hands. Outside, the wind caught her hair and lifted it off her shoulders. The dress clung tighter as she stepped off the porch, hips swaying in the fading light. Cole followed at a distance, trying not to look, and failing miserably. "You sure you don't mind?" she asked once they reached the edge of his land. "I wouldn't have offered if I did," he said. She looked over her shoulder, a small smile tugging at her lips. "A man like you don't seem the type to offer much." "I ain't." He opened the bunkhouse door. It creaked like it always did. Dust floated in the air. It was hot and empty, but clean enough. Ellie stepped inside, looking around. She didn't say thank you. Instead, she dropped her bag on the cot and turned back toward him. "You got a problem with what they said in there?" she asked. No tremble in her voice, just fire. He met her eyes. "They're idiots." Her brow raised. "That a yes or a no?" He looked away. "I don't care what size someone is, just what size their spine is." That caught her off guard. She looked down, then back at him. "That's a good line, cowboy." "I wasn't trying to be clever." Zing, she stepped closer. Just enough that he could smell the dust and sweat on her skin, soft and raw. Her breath hitched, barely. His fingers curled slightly at his side, like maybe he was fighting the urge to reach for something, or someone. but neither moved. "Good night, Mr. Whitaker," she said, voice low. "Night, Miss Harlan." He left before the moment turned into something they'd both pretend didn't happen. Back at the main house, Cole poured himself another glass of whiskey and stared out the window. The bunkhouse light glowed like a secret, and for the first time in years he didn't feel quite so dead inside. The bunkhouse walls were thin. Ellie heard everything. Boots hitting the porch boards, water sloshing into the wash basin, the creak of the main house screen door opening and shutting, twice before midnight. She lay still in the cot, arms folded over her chest, eyes tracing the rafters above like they held some answer, but all they held were cobwebs and quiet judgment. Earlier that day she'd unpacked her things, which meant shaking dust off 2 dresses, a comb with 3 missing teeth, and the unopened letter from her father. It had gone unopened for weeks now, maybe months. She didn't count anymore. She'd shoved it to the bottom of the bag, again. In the morning, Ellie helped feed the chickens. Didn't complain when the feed bag split open at the seam. Didn't cry when the ranch hand named Travis looked her over and muttered, "Bet she eats more in the whole hen house." She saw Cole hear it. His back was to her, but his jaw tightened. He didn't say anything at first. But as Travis turned to light a cigarette, Cole walked over, snatched the match from his hand, and tossed it in the dirt. "Work your mouth again, Travis," he said calmly, "and I'll see how you talk with a busted jaw." The ranch went quiet. Ellie said nothing, just kept scattering feed like nothing happened, but her hands shook for the next 10 minutes. Later that afternoon, she found Cole in the barn, brushing down a bay mare with a temperament as sour as the saloon coffee. "You didn't have to do that," she said, leaning on the stall rail. He didn't look at her. "Didn't do it for you." Ellie raised a brow. "Then for who?" "Nah." He didn't answer, just kept brushing. "You always pick fights you don't want credit for?" she asked. "Only when they need picking." He finally looked at her, slow, steady, like he was weighing something behind those storm-gray eyes. "You ain't soft," he said finally. "Folks'll learn that." Her breath caught. He didn't say it like a compliment, more like a warning, or maybe a promise. Or she didn't respond. Didn't need to. The air between them was thick again, like the heat right before a thunderclap. That night she washed up at the pump outside the bunkhouse. The water was cold, her dress clinging in damp spots as she wiped sweat and dirt from her chest and arms. She turned and froze. Cole was standing about 10 feet away, shirt slung over one shoulder, scars down his ribs like claw marks. He stopped when he saw her, didn't look away, neither did she. For one full second, the night went still. Then he nodded, curt, respectful, and turned back toward the house. Ellie swallowed hard, unsure if her legs were shaking from the cold or something else entirely. Later she sat on the bunkhouse porch, wrapped in a blanket, the night air brushing against her still damp skin. Cole's window flickered with lamplight. She stared at it far too long. She thought about the way her ex used to touch her only behind closed doors, how he called her soft when he wanted her and too much when he didn't. She thought about her father, his sermons about modesty and shame, and how he'd said her body was a burden placed on good men's souls. And she thought about how Cole had looked at her just now, like she was a storm rolling in, and he wasn't sure if he wanted to run or stand in it. Inside her bag, the letter shifted slightly. She ignored it. Instead, she whispered into the dark, "Don't you dare fall for him." But her body was already betraying her, slow burning and awake in a way it hadn't been in years. "Whoa." The bunkhouse groaned once in the wind. And upstairs, behind a flickering window, Cole sat at the edge of his bed, shirt still off, fists clenched in his lap. He hadn't touched a woman in 6 years. But now, he could still see her in the moonlight, skin glowing, hair damp, lips parted like a question left hanging. He hadn't meant to look. But now he couldn't stop. Ellie had been in Dry Creek less than a week, but her presence felt like a match thrown in a hayloft. It wasn't just the way she filled a doorway, or how her laugh, warm and unfiltered, rolled out across the yard like thunder. It was how Cole looked at her when he thought no one was watching, like he couldn't decide whether to pull her close or push her away. The town noticed. The church ladies were the first to whisper. "I heard she's sleeping in his bunkhouse." Well, you know how lonely widowers can get. "Oh, she's not even a proper widow. Probably some runaway with a past." They didn't say her name, just used terms like that woman and her kind, the kind that didn't shrink, didn't apologize, and didn't pretend not to notice when a man stared too long. Worse, Wade noticed. Cole's older brother showed up at the ranch that Thursday, riding in hard like he owned the dirt beneath his boots. His coat was too clean for real work, his tone even cleaner. He found Cole near the east fence line, hammering a busted rail back into place. "She's still here?" Wade asked without saying hello. Cole didn't look up. "She's working, earning her keep. She's making you a goddamn joke. That's what she's doing." That made Cole pause. Wade dismounted and walked closer. "You think Ma's not hearing about it in town? You think the church folks haven't seen that walking scandal hanging around your bunkhouse? She's shaming you, and she's shaming Sarah's memory." "So?" Cole slowly stood upright, hammer still in hand. "Don't bring Sarah into this." "I will, because she'd be sick to her stomach seeing you throw your life at a woman who—" Cole turned, fast. Not quite a swing, but close enough that Wade flinched. "Don't finish that sentence," Cole said, voice low and thick. Wade's eyes flicked to the hammer, then to Cole's face. He scoffed and backed off. "She'll ruin everything," Wade muttered. "You watch." Back at the bunkhouse, Ellie sat on the porch step, wringing a damp rag through her hands. She hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but the wind had carried Wade's words clear across the yard. Walking scandal. Shaming Sarah's memory. The words landed like stones in her stomach. She stayed seated until long after Wade rode off, until the shadows got long and the sun painted the fields gold. That's when Cole walked up, quieter than he looked. "You heard?" he asked, not bothering to pretend otherwise. She didn't look at him. Not all of it, but enough. Cole exhaled, slow and tired. "My brother's a bastard. Always has been." Ellie finally looked up. Her face was unreadable. "Is he wrong?" His jaw flexed. "About what?" "About me, about Sarah, about how it looks." He didn't answer right away. Sat down beside her instead, a few inches apart, but the air between them still burned. "I don't care what it looks like," he said. "And Sarah." He stopped, swallowed. The words came out rough. "Sarah didn't want me to live like a ghost." Ellie stared ahead, voice soft. "That's real noble, Cole. But wanting to feel alive and wanting me, that ain't the same thing." He turned to her, eyes dark. "Don't tell me what I want." Her breath hitched. Just like that, the world got smaller. Just them and the dust, the setting sun, and the heat rising between their skin like smoke from dry brush. Their faces were too close. His fingers brushed her knee, not on purpose, but but he didn't move. She did. "I should go," she said, rising quick, blanket slipping from her lap. He stood too. "Where would you go?" "Someplace quieter." "You run now. They win." Her laugh was soft and bitter. "I've been running since I was 17. You think this little town's the first to spit when I walk by?" She turned toward the bunkhouse. He stepped forward. "Ellie." She froze. "I ain't asking you to stay for them. I'm asking you to stay for me." She didn't turn back, just nodded once, then stepped inside. The door shut gently. No slam, no drama. But Cole stood outside long after the last light in her window flicked out, fists clenched, heart pounding. Inside, Ellie leaned against the door, eyes wet, hands trembling. She didn't know if she was more afraid of leaving or staying. The storm rolled in without warning. Dry Creek skies turned from gold to bruised purple in a matter of minutes. Wind howled across the fields, whipping dirt into the air and rattling loose shingles on the barn. Thunder cracked loud enough to wake the dead. Cole was already on the porch when the lightning struck, a blinding flash that hit the far corner of the barn with a sound like God snapping a tree in half. Then came the smoke. He didn't even yell, just ran. Ellie was in the bunkhouse when she saw it, flames licking up from the roof, sparks flying into the sky like angry stars. Her boots were on before the next clap of thunder. She grabbed a bucket, then another, pumping water like her life depended on it. It wasn't until she reached the barn that she saw Cole, shirt soaked, eyes wild. He was shouting orders, dragging open the gate to free the livestock. Two hands worked beside him, but not fast enough. "The calf's still inside," someone yelled. Cole spun. "Travis, get it out." Travis hesitated. Ellie didn't. She ran. "Ellie!" Cole barked, but she was already through the smoke. Inside the barn, the heat clawed at her lungs. She stumbled toward the back stall, coughing, eyes stinging. The calf was tangled in rope, panicking, slipping in the mud and piss. She dropped to her knees, teeth gritted, hands working blindly. One knot, then another. Her dress caught on a nail, tore, but she didn't stop. When the rope finally came free, she shoved the calf toward the open stall door, slapping its flank until it bolted out. Then the beam cracked above her. Cole reached her just in time. He grabbed her by the waist, yanked her through the doorway just as the beam fell where she'd been crouched. They collapsed into the mud, both gasping, soaked in sweat and smoke. And suddenly she was in his arms, his body on top of hers, pinning her down like protection and heat all in one. His chest rose against hers. Her leg was between his. One hand gripped her hip tighter than it should have. Neither moved. The fire roared behind them, but all she felt was his breath on her lips. He didn't speak, didn't blink, just stared at her like he'd never seen her before. Her hand came up, brushing soot from his jaw, his lips parted. And then, like always, he pulled away. Not out of disgust, but fear. She felt it in the hesitation, in the regret as he stepped back, jaw tight, fists clenched. "Are you hurt?" he asked hoarsely. "No." "You sure?" I said no. Her voice cracked, not from pain, from the ache of almost. He looked at her one more time, one long, burning second, then turned to help the others. She sat in the mud alone, dress torn, chest heaving. Smoke burned her throat, but nothing hurt like his restraint. By morning the fire was out. The barn stood, barely. The livestock was safe. So were they. But the town, it didn't thank her. They noticed the way she ran into danger and whispered that it was for attention, that she was trying to play the hero, that she was looking for reasons to stay. That night, while Ellie sat on the bunkhouse porch, brushing dirt from her arms, Travis passed by and muttered just loud enough, "Brave doesn't make you pretty." She flinched, but didn't rise. Cole stepped out from the shadows. "You just never learn, do you?" he growled. Travis opened his mouth, then shut it, backed off. Cole turned to Ellie. She was already standing. "You going to keep rescuing me now?" she asked, voice sharp. He shook his head. "You don't need rescuing." "No," she said, "but I wouldn't mind being wanted." He took a step toward her. She didn't move. Another step. They were close now, close enough to feel the heat still clinging to their skin. "You think I don't want you?" he asked, low and rough. She stared up at him, eyes wide, lips parted. He leaned in. So close. But he didn't kiss her. He just whispered, "That's the problem." Then walked away into the dark, leaving her shaking from a fire that hadn't burned her skin, but scorched something far deeper. The barn still smoldered 2 days later, blackened wood like broken bones jutting out from the earth. Cole hadn't said more than 10 words to Ellie since the fire. Not out of anger, but something worse. Guilt. He felt it in the way his hands trembled when they passed too close to hers, in how his eyes lingered on her lips but never dared drop lower. He'd almost kissed her, nearly let go of every promise he made to a woman buried 6 feet down. But Sarah was still there, still between them, still watching from the dark corners of his memory with blue eyes and a soft voice. And now Ellie was there too, not replacing but unsettling, making room where he'd sworn there wasn't any left. Cole sat at his desk that evening, trying not to look out the window toward the bunkhouse where a lantern still glowed. He reached into the drawer to grab a pencil and found something else instead. A journal. Worn leather, cracked at the spine. Sarah's. His breath caught. He hadn't opened it since the funeral, hadn't wanted to. But tonight, something pulled at him harder than fear. He flipped to the middle. "I don't think he'll ever stop loving me. That's the saddest part. He's too loyal, too good. He'll grieve me forever and think it's noble. But God, I hope one day he lets someone else in. Someone wild, someone stubborn, someone who sees through that quiet and drags him back into the light." The next page was stained with what might have been tears. Cole set the journal down like it burned. His throat was tight, heart pounding like hooves in his chest. Outside, the wind picked up. He didn't notice he was moving until his boots hit the porch steps. He followed the light. Inside the bunkhouse, Ellie sat cross-legged on the cot, hair down, letter in hand. She didn't hear him knock, didn't see the door open. She was crying. Not loudly, just soft, silent tears sliding down her cheek as she stared at the opened envelope. Her shoulders trembled, breath shallow. Cole froze in the doorway. She looked up. Eyes red, letter crumpled in her fist. "You read it?" he asked, voice barely above gravel. She nodded once. "Didn't mean to, but I did." He stepped inside, slow. "What did it say?" Ellie let out a bitter laugh. "Said I was a burden, that I ruined every man that ever loved me, that my body was a curse." Cole's hands curled into fists. "That ain't true." She shrugged. "Maybe not, but I believed it long enough to make it feel true." He sat on the edge of the cot, careful to keep a few inches between them. "Your father's a coward," he said. He's a preacher. Same thing. That pulled a weak smile from her, but her eyes were still raw. She reached for the blanket, wrapped it around her shoulders like armor. Cole stared at the floor. "I found Sarah's journal," he said after a long silence. Ellie looked over, surprised. "She said she hoped I'd find someone who could see me, drag me back into the light." Ellie blinked. "She wrote that?" He nodded. "You think that's me?" she asked, voice trembling. "You think I'm dragging you somewhere better, or just making it harder?" He turned to her, eyes full of everything he hadn't said since the day they met. "I think I've been dead for 6 years, he said, "and you're the first thing I've felt since." Their faces were close again, closer than ever. She didn't move. Neither did he. The moment stretched, tight, trembling, ready to snap. But still, he didn't kiss her. She pulled away first this time, wiping her face. I ain't asking for your heart, Cole," she whispered. "I just want to stop feeling like the shame you're trying not to show." He stood slowly. "You're not. Then why won't you let yourself have me?" His answer came quiet, painful. "Because I don't want our first time to feel like a mistake." That hit her harder than a slap. She stared up at him. Not angry, not hurt. Just hollow. "I should have stayed gone," she whispered. He shook his head. "Number, you should have come sooner." He left before she could say another word. Outside, the wind howled through the trees. Inside, Ellie pressed the letter to her chest like it might crush her. She didn't cry again. She just stared at the wall. And in the main house, Cole sat with Sarah's journal in his lap and Ellie's name burning like a brand in his chest. The ranch felt colder now. Not because the wind had changed, but because the people had. Ellie could feel it in the way the ranch hands stopped saying good morning, in the way townsfolk turned their heads just a little too slow when she passed. She'd seen scorn before. But this was like a hanging rope made of whispers. And Wade was the one tying the knot. He came back 2 days after the fire, but this time he brought paperwork and company. 3 men from town, men in coats too clean for cattle and boots too polished for dirt. Cole met them in the front yard, arms crossed, eyes hard. "You're not welcome here, Wade." Wade held out a document. "You're in violation of Daddy's moral clause. You remember the one that said no scandal under his name would live off the land?" Cole didn't take the paper. "Don't give a damn about Daddy's righteousness. He drank more than he prayed." "You're not married," Wade snapped. "You've got a woman with no ties, no name, no shame living under your roof." "Oh, she ain't under my roof." "Doesn't matter. The town's talking. And when the town talks, it affects the board, the ranch name, our money." Cole stepped forward. "You ever say her name with that tone again, and I'll knock your teeth in." The other men stepped back, but Wade didn't flinch. "You always did have a soft spot for strays. This one's just louder, heavier, and knows how to cry on cue." That was when Cole's fist met Wade's jaw. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Wade hit the dirt, blood on his lips and fire in his eyes. "You just lost everything, little brother," he hissed, "and I'll make damn sure she watches you burn." The next morning, Ellie walked into the general store for flour and sugar. She never made it past the front counter. 3 women stood near the bolts of fabric, arms folded tight. "Shameless," one whispered. "Not even a ring on her finger," another added. The third smiled sweet and said, "Bless her heart," which everyone knew was Southern for "you poor, pathetic thing." Ellie clenched her jaw, grabbed the flower, and walked out without paying. Later, Cole found her in the bunkhouse with the tin can of coins she'd brought from Wichita Falls, all she had left. "I'll pay for my things from now on," she said before he even spoke. "You don't have to." "I do." He sat down across from her. The space between them felt wider now, like everything unsaid was a canyon they couldn't cross. "They're trying to take the ranch," he said quietly. She looked up. "Because of me." Because they're cowards hiding behind tradition." She nodded slow. "Same reason I got kicked out of my own home." A beat passed. Then another. "I got a visitor today," she said. His brow furrowed. "Who?" She didn't answer. Instead, the knock came at the door. Cole stood, cautious. He opened it. Roy Beckett stood there, boots shined, hair slicked back, and smile sharp enough to gut a man. "Howdy, Whitaker," he said. "Heard you picked up my leftovers." Cole didn't say a word, just stared. Roy leaned against the frame like he owned the whole damn county. "Thought I'd stop by. Clear the air. Ellie and we got history. She never quite knew what to do with her hands, or her place." Cole stepped outside, pulling the door shut behind him. "I ain't gonna warn you, Beckett. I'm gonna promise you." Roy laughed. "That's so." Cole didn't blink. "If I catch you looking at her wrong, breathing near her wrong, I'll put you under this dirt where you belong." "Lol." Roy's smirk faded. "You forget who I am?" "No," Cole said. "I just stopped caring." Roy backed off, but only a little. "Tell her I said goodbye," he muttered, then walked off like the coward he was. Inside, Ellie sat on the edge of the cot, arms wrapped around herself. "He's not gonna stop," she whispered when Cole returned. "He will." "How?" "I'll make him." She looked up, eyes tired. "I don't want to be a reason you lose everything." He dropped to one knee in front of her, took her hand, held it like something sacred. "You're not a reason, Ellie." She blinked back tears. "You're the only thing making me fight at all." That night she laid in bed with the lantern still glowing. The wind pushed against the walls, but inside was warm. She thought about Cole's hands. Not on her body, but in hers. Firm, honest, unshaking. And for the first time in years, she let herself want. Not quietly, not shamefully, but fully. Ellie didn't leave at night like she used to, head low, feet quick, heart heavy. She left at sunrise. Hair braided tight, chin lifted, saddlebags packed with nothing but dry biscuits, 2 dresses, and a spine she hadn't felt since she was 17. Cole watched her from the porch, didn't try to stop her. He understood, even if it gutted him. "You sure?" he asked, voice low and cracked. She nodded. "I need to finish this." She mounted the horse he'd saddled for her without asking. One last glance over her shoulder. "I'll be back," she said. Then she was gone, dust rising behind her like a trail of smoke from a slow-burning fire. Wichita Falls hadn't changed. Still smelled like hot grease and rust, still had that dry hush in the air that made secrets feel louder. Ellie rode in past the same store window where her ex once held her hand in public, then let it go when folks looked. Now she didn't look down, didn't shrink. She walked right up to the sheriff's office and asked for Roy Beckett. The deputy blinked. He left town last week, said he was going to Dry Creek. She smirked. He found what he was looking for. Next stop, her father's house. The front porch was the same, paint peeling, rocker tilted, Bible thumping on the windowsill like a silent judgment. She didn't knock, just opened the door. Her father sat at the table, head bowed over scripture. Her mother stood in the kitchen, drying the same plate she'd probably washed 5 times already. Oh. Neither looked up. I read the letter, Ellie said. Her father didn't move. I was going to burn it, but I didn't. I needed to read it, needed to hear your voice one more time, just to be sure I didn't make you up. He turned a page, still silent. Ellie walked farther in, boots echoing on the wood. You called me a burden, said I was a curse, said I'd ruin any man foolish enough to love me. Her mother flinched. I used to believe you, every damn word. Every pound on my bones felt like proof. She stepped closer to the table, voice rising. But you were wrong. Her father looked up finally, eyes hollow and cold. You're not welcome here, Eleanor. I ain't trying to be. She pulled a folded page from her pocket and set it on the table. Sarah's journal, a copy of the page where she begged Cole to love again. My place is with a man who sees me, who doesn't flinch at the fire I carry. And whether he chooses me or not, I won't carry your shame 1 minute longer. She turned, walked out. Didn't slam the door. Didn't need to. The ride back to Dry Creek took 2 days. When she arrived, the ranch was quiet. Too quiet. She passed the saloon, saw heads turn in the window. Didn't stop. She passed the church, heard a few muttered prayers, didn't flinch. She reached the ranch yard, and Cole stepped out from the barn, sweat-soaked and stunned. He dropped the hay bale he was carrying like it weighed nothing at all. She dismounted, boots hitting dirt. I'm back, she said, voice steady. I see that. You gonna invite me in? I was hoping you'd just walk in like you owned the place. She smiled then, slow, tired, real. But she didn't move. I went back, she said, faced it, all of it, my past, my shame, told it to kiss my ass. Cole walked toward her. You still think you're too much? Every day. He stopped a foot from her. You still think I'm afraid of that? Her voice dropped. I think you're afraid of needing someone again. He stepped closer. I think you're right. They were inches apart now, breath tangled, hearts louder than footsteps. But I'm more afraid of losing you, he whispered. Finally, he touched her. Hand to her cheek, thumb brushing away the road dust and doubt. Then lips. Soft at first, then deeper, honest. No ghost between them this time, just heat and hunger and home. She melted into him, and he held her like she was made of fire, and he was tired of the cold. They didn't undress, didn't fall into bed. Not yet, because some things are too sacred to rush. Some unions require the patience of storms. Later they sat on the porch, shoulder to shoulder. I told my father he was wrong, she said. You needed to. You think I'm strong? He chuckled. You walked through hell and came back looking like heaven. Yeah, I do. She rested her head on his shoulder. For the first time, she didn't flinch at being touched. She didn't brace for shame. She just breathed. Sunday came like it always did in Dry Creek. Stiff collars, polished boots, and whispers buried beneath hymns. The church pews filled one by one. Cole stood at the back, hat in hand, shirt pressed. Alone. Until the doors swung open behind him. Ellie walked in, head high, dress simple, curves undeniable. She didn't try to hide them. Not anymore. The room fell to a hush so thick it could have choked the choir. She walked straight to him. He offered his arm. She took it. And together they walked past every gasping mouth, every narrowed stare, every wagging tongue. At the front row, Cole's mother stiffened. Her lips drew tight, knuckles white around her hymnal. She said nothing. Cole nodded to her once. No smile, no plea. Just a man who'd made up his damn mind. When the preacher asked them all to stand and sing, Ellie sang louder than the rest. Not sweet, not polite, just real, like everything else about her. Later that day, the bakery opened its doors. Ellie wore an apron dusted in flour and pride. The same women who used to whisper came in one by one. They asked for pies, paid in silence, couldn't meet her eye. She didn't serve them bitterness. Just warm slices and exact change. Cole helped her close up. Didn't say much. Didn't need to. Until he found the pie dish sitting on the counter. A glass one, older, familiar. Inside, a note folded in half. He opened it slowly. She's stronger than we'll ever be. I was wrong. Mama. Ellie didn't ask what it said, just looked at his face. He tucked it in his pocket, walked over and kissed her forehead. Then her cheek. Then her lips. This time they didn't stop. The cabin was small. The bed was made. The fire was low, but waiting. They undressed in pieces, slow, quiet, reverent. His calloused hands trembled only once when they reached her waist. She placed her hands over his. Don't you dare be gentle with me just to be polite. I ain't ever been polite in my life, he whispered, voice thick. He kissed her shoulder, her collarbone, the curve of her belly. She touched his chest, his scars, the faded ring around his neck where the leather cord used to hang. She didn't close her eyes. Neither did he. Because this wasn't a moment to escape from. It was a moment to arrive in. Afterward, they lay tangled in sheets and silence. The fire cracked once, then settled into coals. Her hand rested on his chest. His fingers traced lazy circles on her hip. You still afraid? She asked softly. He looked down at her. Yeah. Of what? Of how damn light you make me feel. She smiled into his skin. You make me feel heavy. He blinked. She looked up. But the kind of heavy that holds you in place, the kind that means something. He kissed her then, tired, grateful, undone. In the morning, Cole walked into town with dirt on his boots and flour on his shirt. He kissed Ellie in the doorway of her shop in front of 3 old men and didn't give a damn. Folks still talked. But by then their words couldn't stick to either of them. Because shame doesn't cling when you've stopped hiding. And love? Love weighs nothing when it's finally been set free. Turns out the weight that nearly broke me was the same weight that saved me. What did you think of Ellie and Cole's story? Did you feel that tension simmering all the way to the end? Let us know in the comments. Was there a moment that hit you hardest? Or a line that stuck with you long after reading? Drop your favorite scene or quote below. We read every comment and would love to hear what you felt. If you enjoyed this slow-burn Western romance full of grit, heart, and healing, make sure to like the video, subscribe to Saddlehorn Stories, and ring that bell so you never miss a tale from the frontier. Thanks for riding with us. The trail's just getting good.